address the climate crisis. As we come together today, we reflect on the outcomes of this conference and the critical commitments made by world leaders, negotiators, and stakeholders. COP29 was not just another meeting, it was a platform where the urgency of climate action was underscored by the commitment to transformative goals and to a new collective goal on finance. So with the world facing unprecedented challenges due to climate change, this conference serves as a crucial step forward in setting the stage for a sustainable and equitable future. So the outcomes of COP29 go beyond financial commitments, encompassing a range of actions and pledges aimed at accelerating global climate action, strengthening resilience, and fostering international collaboration. One of the key takeaways from COP29 is a clear recognition that youth as future leaders must play an active role in shaping and driving the global climate agenda. So today, we are here to reflect on these commitments, particularly how the outcomes of COP29 can shape the future of climate action and how the energy, voices, and leadership of youth can guide the implementation of these agreements. This dialogue will help us to explore how different generations drawn from experience and fresh perspectives can collaborate to ensure that the promises made in Baku are fulfilled and that future generations inherit a viable planet. So we have an excellent panel today, and I'm excited to hear the insights on how we can work together to turn the commitments of COP29 into tangible action. But first, I would like to introduce our distinguished panelists. First, we have Nicolas Tedosiu from SDSM Black Sea. We have Alejandra Gonzalez, a member of the Youth Advisory Committee of the Scientific Panel for the Amazon. Salma Rangita, Network Coordinator for SDSN Youth Indonesia, and Shalom Ivo from the Local Pathways Fellowship Program. So thank you all for being here today, and let's dive into today's conversation. So let's start the dialogue by diving into the key outcomes of COP29. So first, I would like to hear from Nicolas Tedesio from SDSM Black Sea. Nicolas, could you share your insights on the main outcomes of COP29 and how they reshape our international approach to climate action?
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. Congratulations for the initiative. It's always nice and interesting to be participating in this panels and to have the opportunity to discuss with young people, especially with young people, because, as you said, they are the future, and we need to take that into serious consideration. Before providing my perspective on the on COP29, I would like to say why I participated in what affiliation. As you mentioned, I'm chairing SDSN Black Sea, which is one of a huge network. It comprises 12 countries, most of the Balkan countries, all the countries all around the Black Sea, including Azerbaijan and the Caspian. So the hosts of COP29 are also members of SDSN Black Sea. But I was there in another affiliation, again, a UN network. It's called Council of Engineers for the Energy Transition. This is a network of about 40 engineers of all disciplines from all over the world that were selected by the United Nations, actually to consult the Secretary General of the United Nations and the services of the United Nations on this very challenging process of the energy transition. So we were there, invited by the United Nations, and we participated in several panels presenting our opinion and our option and our scientific approach on what needs to be happen to have a successful energy transition. This is a huge challenge. This is something, maybe the most demanding challenge that we had in decades, the process of the energy transition. And we need to take that into serious consideration. We need to make very careful steps, not jump to, not to be very enthusiastic on some issues and disregard the problems and the challenges, so that we can have a better future, because the energy transition is all about our future. Now, coming back to the COP, it's really a great gathering. I really love these gatherings. It's my third COP. I've been to Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, last year in Dubai, and this year in Baku. And I will probably be next year in Brazil, in the Amazon as well. we hear a lot about these COPs, whether they are useful, whether they are productive, whether it's just a waste of time and money and just another huge environmental impact with all these people traveling to a specific place. I acknowledge that these are all significant issues, but the fact that you can find thousands, hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands of people with the same interests and the same anxiety about the future, I think it's something that you cannot disregard at all. So there were many discussions, many panels, a lot of panels happening at the same time in different pavilions, a lot of discussions, very, very interesting discussions, a very significant participation of young people. And I need to emphasize that. It was really impressive how many young people you found in the corridors, in the panels, attending the discussions, but also participating in panel discussions. I find this very, very interesting, very challenging, and I call to all those people who are attending this meeting, look into your options, find ways to be included in this process, and maybe join in person next year in Brazil, where we expect a completely different COP than the COPs, at least the three previous ones. So I can continue to say a lot of things, but maybe I can give the floor to other panelists as well, so that I don't take all the time. And of course, we'll come back with more discussions of the COP.
We will definitely come
Is
back
it?
to you, Nicholas, but thank you
Okay.
so much for giving us and opening this conversation. And I think what you're mentioning is very important. It's not only about what happened in the negotiation rooms, but also the great conversations and topics that are addressed in parallel at COP, which I think, and I agree, is one of the greatest values of these events. So now moving on to Salma. Salma, as a youth representative, how do you see the impact of these outcomes on global youth engagement and climate action?
Okay, so maybe I would like to say thank you for Antonio and for everyone that have already participated for today's meeting. I think I would maybe give out my perspective and as a UNSDS and Youth Indonesia representative. As we all know, in Indonesia, we are a critical player in a global climate landscape, recognizing that the pivotal outcomes of the COP29 is also directly impacted to developing economy and also ecological challenges. And in our very perspective and in our country, the most significant outcomes from the COP29 commitment analysis is about the renewable energy transitions and particularly on relevant of Indonesia energy mix as well. And well, in this case, in my major in materials engineering, I'm particularly excited that we saw deeper and the renewed focus on sustainable materials and also green technology innovations. And I think the commitments towards the COP29 is also having like this significant signal that is crucial to shift our industrial processes from the carbon industrial processes, which really align perfectly with our national development goals and the urgency that needs to reduce emissions while also maintaining the economic growth. And other than that, there are several innovative solutions that we already made by having the pentahealth collaborations also with the governments and the institutions, the students that we're having in our university, and also with the industry as well. We're working on several efforts related to the engineering and also the energy transitions, which the efforts including creating several materials development, such as like the battery research. We're developing an innovative batteries for renewable energy applications as the secondary batteries for electrical vehicles supports. And other than that, we also creating biomass utilizations, which we explore some of the waste that we have in Indonesia. As we all know, Indonesia is also one of the biggest contributors towards our waste. And we are continuously conducting a research on creating a biomass as a sustainable energy resources as well, and exploring our geothermal energy. And I see that one of the goals that were made by the government is also like the downstreaming and the geothermal energy focus on researching and developing of various applications. And other than that, we are also discovering the nuclear energy and the potentials of the nuclear energy for several circular economy implementations. And other than that, we also focusing previously we have this government events called the annual SDGs conference. And then one of the key highlights that we are point out is also about the green jobs and the circular economy, where the government are now shifting on preparing a skilled and environmental conscious for the workforce, towards the educations and also the training programs for sustainability. And I believe that these efforts can contribute significantly for Indonesia and also the energy transition goals. And I think as we are seeing the COP29 commitments, we have to remain committed on developing innovative and also the environmental solutions to support the sustainable future, not only from the youth perspective or maybe from the government itself, but as we all as one. And I think one of the key players that needs to contribute more is also the businesses and also the industry. I think that's for me.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Salma. And tying up to what Nicholas mentioned, the importance, once again, of the just transition, especially the energy transition, but the importance of leveraging the different stakeholders, from students, teachers, to the private sector. We need a shared commitment and engagement to advance on the climate goals. So really, thank you so much for those inputs. Now, we're going to move on to the next question about the role of youth in driving the outcomes of COP29. And I would like to ask this first question to Alejandra Gonzalez from the Youth Advisory Committee of the Scientific Panel for the Amazon. Alejandra, what strategies do you think youth can use to ensure that COP29 outcomes translate into action at the national and local levels?
Sorry, I had some issues before with my audio. Okay, am I audible right now?
Yes.
Awesome.
All good.
Okay, I'm gonna try this way. Sorry about it. First of all, thank you so much for being here. It's such an honor. It was very interesting for me to like the way I arrived to COP, because I arrived there through youth opportunities. Before COP29, I participated in a COP simulation specifically for young people. So this is a way to show that the world is putting some opportunities that we didn't have before. This event started, the COP simulation started 2 years ago. This was the third edition, and it started before Sharm el-Sheikh COP, 2027 COP. So it was very interesting for me, because now that the COP ended, we have seen that the resolutions that we have made during the COP simulations 2 months or 1 month before the actual COP were very similar, especially in terms of the funding and the measures that should be taken. So this also shows a way that young people are actually very engaged in this situation, that they are aware of everything that is happening. So this is just kind of like an introduction. I think that there are many ways that people can, young people can contribute to like put these things in action. For example, it was very I was very proud to see that a Latin American, because I'm from Latin America, earned a conquest. It was for adaptation measures. It was I don't know how to say this, like a competition, and these young people, they were from Bolivia, and they ended a lot of funding to put these things in action. So it's really interesting to see that young people are coming up with very interesting solutions to solve these things, right? Not only in terms of mitigation, not only in terms of adaptation, but in many different aspects. I would also say that right now we have many different aspects to arrive into decisions to make it happen. For example, through Younger, we are able not only to be heard at COP, but also they have different activities before COP, and also preparation to be climate negotiators. I also have seen, and this was very interesting for me, this was my first COP. So I have seen, for example, that for many countries, they have very young negotiators, that they are in their early 30s. So it's kind of like very motivating for me and also for other young people, that we, the young people, are capable of being in those places, of taking the decisions for the future, and also to not only inspire, but we do have the obligation to also teach this kind of learning that we receive in during COP or other events that we are having, to transmit it to other young people. I think that that would be my answer.
Thank you so much, Alejandra. And it really ties up with what has been mentioned of the importance of youth participating in these events through, different landscapes, not only at side events, but also, as you mentioned, on the negotiation rooms and as part of the official delegations of the countries. And I would like to complement this with your perspective, Shalom. As a local Pathways Fellow, you have worked on the ground with communities. So how do you think youth can drive the implementation of COP29 commitments in a local way?
Yeah, thank you so much, Antonio. I'll just start with a little introduction about myself. I'm Shalom Ibo. I'm a part of the 2024 Local Pathways Fellowship. I am also the founder of Renew Arts Technologies, which is basically an organization that focuses on both climate change advocacy, skills development, and technological deployment of clean energy solutions. And so with related to local solutions going global, I think my company is one of the examples of that. And one of the things that I would say from the things that I can say from the COP29, especially in terms of how youth can leverage the outcomes of COP and then influencing both local and national policies, I would really always come down to advocacy. And that's something that we know that most young people are doing, but not just advocacy in terms of just showing up on social media, advocacy, merging that with providing policy briefs, really knowing your stuff, providing position papers. And I also think something that is very critical, which is one thing that I noticed most of the negotiators would advise us, because I also went to COP as a part of a youth delegation. And so they would always say things like, build your technical capacity, make it that whatever you're saying has scientific backups. They have, you've thought it through, they have technical capacity to be able to deploy actual real solutions to the climate change crisis. And so I think that one way that young people cannot just drive the negotiations from the global to the local is translating that in terms of advocacy, translating that in terms of maybe starting up an initiative or a movement and really pushing the outcomes that you've heard from COP out there for people that were not able to go to COP to know about the outcomes that were at COP. And I think also another thing that I would like to emphasize is engaging in professional programs. I think it's an opportunity not just to network with people, but to also share your own perspective, being out there and standing and sharing your perspective, not just as a young person, but also like from the technical capacity that you've been able to build over time. And so I think these ways are like the ways that I can think about. And maybe I'm also going to end it with translating some of the outcomes of COP into local solutions. Take, for instance, I remember Alejandra mentioned, I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, but please pardon me. So she mentioned something about, okay, sorry, that was Salma mentioning something about grids, energy storage and biomass solutions, right? So being able to translate that, not just from paper, but developing solutions that have this in place and doing that from the local perspective. And I'll share that with an example of what we do here in my organization. We also do produce like solar kits, and those solar kits are really localized. So we try to use like reuse, repurpose electronic waste and then create solar kits that can help young people to have energy access. And so that local solution is it's reaching those at the local level. So it's more like translating, okay, we want to triple renewables, right? We want to promote energy access. We are doing these solutions locally. And something I'll end with, something I really appreciate about the local solution pathways. Also, they are really working on amazing initiatives on translating global climate actions to local solutions. So one of the projects that they were working on through the team that I was a part of, they were working on sustainable transportation. And so you see young people always developing solutions, matching up some of the things that translating what has been written on paper to actual solutions that people can use and better their lives. And I feel that these ways and like if we can engage more young people in these ways, local solutions through local actions, I believe that that is going to be really impactful in the global transition. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alan, for that great overview, and also love the message of the importance of empowering young people, understanding what is green, you know, especially in this decisions, but also how do we take that to actually meaningful implementation for communities. So now we're going to move on into the importance of intergenerational collaboration and the way we can enhance the effectiveness of climate action initiatives through it. So this question goes to Nicholas again. So in your experience, how can different generations work together to make climate action more impactful?
Well, that's a very, very interesting question. And we need to understand that we need this intergenerational cooperation. I will start with with our networks, the SDSN networks. I'm not sure if all of the attendees today are familiar with these networks. The goal of these networks is to mobilize the scientific community, which includes the professor, the researchers, and the students from universities and research centers, in order to provide new innovative solutions for the implementation of the SDGs. I think it was mentioned by our young representatives in this panel, the importance of the new ideas that we need to be able to ensure a better future. We still need new solutions. We know that if we follow the path that we followed in the past decades, we are not going to be there. Obviously, we're not going to be in 2030 where we wanted to be in 2015 during the Paris Agreement, but we need to be in a better place, but also in a pathway that will ensure our future. So we need this collaboration. We need the fresh minds, the fresh ideas coming from young people, even if they are not implementable. It doesn't matter. We need the new ideas, and we can work together in order to make them implementable, implement them. So this is one option coming from the SDSN networks. So please join the youth branches of the SDSN networks. We also have a very active youth branch as SDSN Black Sea. Please join. You will find very interesting people to discuss there, but not just on the youth side, also in the side that collaborates with the not so young, I would say. But I want to emphasize on another thing that attracted my attention both during this COP, but during my personal experience with discussing with young people. I'm a university professor. I discuss every day with my students. Through the SDSN Youth, we have a lot of discussions. I identify a difference in the way we look on climate change solutions. We know that climate change, we deal with climate change in both adaptation and mitigation. I find that young people are more interested in mitigation rather than older ones. Older people are more interested in adaptation because it's today. Mitigation is tomorrow. And this is much more interesting topic for younger people. But we need to put that in action, because if we just follow the path that we followed in the previous years and just follow the events. I mean, we've seen the disasters coming from climate change, and we're just trying to um, to comfort people or to provide solutions that follow the disasters. We need to act before the disasters. We saw what happened in Valencia about a month ago. We had 250 casualties in a European city, and actually, Valencia this year was declared as the European Green Capital. It's the Green Capital of Europe, Valencia, and they started the year with celebrations, and they are ending the year with this huge disaster. We need to understand that climate change is here, climate change is happening, but the solution to climate change is not just to follow the events and try to recover the damages, is to prevent them. That's much more effective, much more cost effective, even cost effective, and it will ensure the better future. So please participate, join, act. It's up to you. We are waiting from your experience. We are waiting for your ideas, for your passion to find solutions. We cannot. You cannot let everything to the previous generations. We need to work together to find better solutions.
Thank you so much, Nicholas, for that great reflection. I will highlight what you said about we need ideas, even if they're not implemented right now, and work together to make it implementable. I think as youth, a lot of the times we doubt about, the potential of the ideas we have, but it's very empowering to hear the importance of collaborating to make it actually happen and creating a ripple effect. With this in mind, Alejandra, as a youth leader, how do you see the importance of intergenerational collaboration in advancing on this global climate agenda?
Sorry, I keep getting confused about which mic to use. But thank you so much. That was a question I was really waiting for. I think that I love the fact of this intergenerational way of collaboration, because we as generation do have different ways of thinking, different priorities, different expectations. And I think that the way we see climate change for young people, it's more of as an urgent aspect and something that actually like happens now. And in contrast, most of like elder people or not young people kind of like have a perspective of more in a patient way, and we can actually see that in the COP resolutions, right? I think that it's really important to, as and Nicholas, I don't know if I have pronounced it fine, said, I think one of the most important things that new generation of young generation can bring is that they actually have a very interesting perspective about the proportions of how the NCQG should be distributed. For example, in the current resolution of this COP, they put a lot of emphasis in mitigation, and this, of course, we do need to reduce the emissions. However, we should not forget the other aspects, right? Like adaptation, for example, loss and damage, cross-cutting. So I also think that because of the evolution as a society, we also come up with new topics such as gender, such as technology, and this is something that should be considered in not only the resolutions, but in the like ways of to implement and make this happen. I also would like to put a lot of emphasis in climate justice because new generations are very aware about this aspect, and it was really interesting for me to during COP see the protest and not only the protests but like the messages about indigenous people. I mean. I'm from Latin America, and for example, I'm from Bolivia, and half of my population it's indigenous communities. And it kind of like the same for many Latin American countries, right? So this is some aspect that we should not leave behind because it embraces and it actually conducts us to a very integral way to manage this climate issue.
Well, thank you so much, Alejandra. And I love what you mentioned about new topics arriving, the new conversations that are happening, not only at COP, but in a global scale, and how we are not just looking at numbers, we're looking at this social aspect of the decisions that are getting taken. And I think a perfect example is the just transition, the fact that a lot of people are also advocating for just an equitable transition, which definitely puts on forward the social aspect of the topics. So also leveraging what you said about the climate negotiations, I would like now to turn to Salma and Shalom. Salma, first to you, reflecting on past negotiations and the different conversations as well as your COP experience. What are some key lessons you should keep in mind when engaging in future COP processes, especially now with the road to COP30 in Brazil?
Okay, thank you for the questions. I think I would like to highlight more for Nicholas and also the answer that comes from the local path fellowships, which comes from Shalom, which I really appreciate much. It's about like emphasizing about the discussions from intercultural exchange discussions to participate, act, passion, and about to find solutions. Because as we all know, when it comes to solutions, it needs to consider about like more localized solutions because each places like different places, they have like different types of like environment infrastructures and then types of implementation for flow strategy. So we need to localize everything for what resources that we have in these places. And I think this also aligns with the to learn about the past negotiations that were happening because reflecting from our previous climate summits that we have, we learned that that's we need like to make collaborations within youth. It needs to be effective and it needs to be it needs to it needs to have like giving the opportunities for everyone for them to give out their perspective. So this engagement, it requires several key points that we need to support more, such as like the structure platforms to make a meaningful participation because every platform that we are creating, it needs to create a bigger outcomes from the discussions that we already have. So I think we can also try to support more on like a capacity building program or maybe a transparent communication channels between the youth representative and also the decision maker. We can try to collaborate it with maybe the decisions maker from the government side or maybe from the industries as well. And also for the implementation mechanism, we need to emphasize more to maybe try to engage more people that have experts in their places, such as like maybe to give our explanations. I'm particularly focusing on like transitioning on the energy and also the commitments into intangible technological solutions and also a scientific communication, so we can give a bigger perspective and understanding for all of the people to understand the importance and also to give out the understanding that this issue was crucial. And for Indonesia itself, we can see that this means we need to develop several issues, such as like developing a sustainable material for the infrastructure to support the infrastructure and creating the circular economy models and several manufacturers, or maybe designing a climate resilient technologies to specific our tropical context. And we have to seek out for like the opportunities and the challenges that we also have and what kind of maybe supports that we that could be supported from maybe the other countries or maybe from the government and the businesses. I think that's for me.
Thank you so much, Selma. You know, reflecting on some of the aspects you mentioned, meaningful youth participation, the importance of capacity building, transparent communication channels, all of this is very important to actually move forward the conversation and ensure youth perspectives are meaningfully included within these processes. Shalom, on this same note, what have you learned, you know, from previous COPs, from previous experiences, and how can these lessons guide future youth participation from your perspective?
Yeah, thank you so much, Antonio. I had a lot of interesting key points that I had noted before. So it sounds like I'm just going to echo what Nicholas, Alejandra, and Salma has said. And what I really loved, and that's some of the things that they've already mentioned, like coming from the aspect of the intergenerational collaboration, and how Nicholas mentioned that he saw a lot of young people more in this COP. And that was the same thing that I heard from the bilateral meeting with the United States Deputy Secretary of Energy. So he mentioned the same thing, that he's seeing a lot of young people in this spaces. So my message to the youth will be, now we are here, we need to really put ourselves, like we need to claim the space, we need to own it, we need to be delivering tangible interventions, we need to make all of the solutions we are given to be realistic. And I think that's also something that Nicholas has mentioned as a concern, like, okay, these solutions that young people are proposing, how do we implement them? So I believe that it's back on us as young people to be able to understand the solutions that we're providing, assess them, de-risk them, understand how to implement them and make them tailored to the situations that we are looking at. So for instance, if you are in Africa, your solutions should actually consider African perspectives and broaden that and implement and make it able to be implementable in Africa. And I think that is something that young people should keep at the back of their mind. And secondly, one thing I would also say is that the aspect of meaningful youth engagement, just like you mentioned, Antonio, I think that what I have seen so far is, okay, we have young people on the panel. We have young people representation. So how do we translate that to, like, how do we track that? How do we monitor that? What young people are saying, it's not just a matter of show. Okay, we have 30 young people come to the delegation. I knew a lot of countries that had youth delegates. They funded them, yes, but the recommendations they're making, how do you account for them? How do you integrate them to the policies, to the decisions that you're taking forward from COP? How do we even know that these decisions that are coming from young people are being implemented? So I think the second thing is not just putting young people out there, but actually creating tracking or monitoring systems or mechanisms that can ensure that the voices of young people are understood and they are also implemented. And I think I also value what Alejandro mentioned about indigenous community, because these people are people that already know the solutions. They do not even know that their sustainable practices are already solutions to the climate change crisis. And so it's really from the bottoms level, like from the local, like driving solutions from like locally led solutions, driving it from bottom top. And I think that also would, that's also something, a key message that I will send out there. And finally, following up on the negotiation track, I think someone mentioned on that, being aware of what is happening and ensuring that you come with, you know, your scientific backups. If you're following the energy track, what has been decided on the energy track, how do you want to push forward what has been decided? What does it mean for you? What does it mean for your community? What does it mean for those that you're representing? And what does it also translate to actions for the organizations that you're working with? So I think that's also something that I would put out there for young people to keep in mind. And I think I'll just summarize by saying that being at COP is a great opportunity. Being at this climate conversations are such great opportunities that you would definitely get more opportunities once you're at COP, because it's like closer to COP, you start seeing, oh, speaking engagement is open for this. So we have to prepare ourselves to own our space. We have to prepare ourselves to not just be there for show, but really translating all we say into actions. Thank you.
Wow, quite a lot, Shalom, but I love all the messages that you share. I love especially what you mentioned about avoiding tokenism, which is something that is very important. And it's always important to put that in the conversation of like, how are you actually engaging people? How meaningful are their contributions? How are you monitoring how they are included? Because a lot of the times we might hear, oh yeah, we have a youth delegate, but what does that actually mean in action? So let's talk about finally ensuring the commitments of COP29 lead to tangible actions. So I would like to hear from Nicholas. What do you think needs to be in place to ensure that the agreements made at COP lead to concrete actions, especially at the grassroots levels?
Yes, that's a very interesting issue, and I think that's what everyone wants to hear. How we are going to take these outcomes, the results, and transform them into tangible actions. We all know that there was an agreement concerning the amount of money that countries should put in the climate fund to support mostly the global south. We all know that this is not the amount of money that we expected. Everyone wanted more, but this is it. We need to work on that. It's not we are not disregarding anything. We need to work on that. So we need to take into serious consideration on how this money should be used for the good of the global south, but not just for the good of the global south. What the global north needs to understand is that this money is not just money that they give away and they just support the developing countries. The way the developing countries are going to take advantage of these funds and they are going to implement more sustainable practices is for the good of the planet, not for the good of their own countries. And again, this is a misunderstanding that it always creates a lot of problems. The developed countries, they are mostly interested in advancing from 90% achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals to 92 or 93%, than they are in ensuring that the country that's now in 50% will go to 60 or 70. The amount of money needed to go from 90 to 92 is probably more than the amount of money that a country needs to go from 50 to 70. And again, we need to understand that the impact of climate change will be the same whether you are in the north or you're in the south. The impacts of climate change will go to Scandinavian countries, which are always the first and the best countries in achieving the SDGs. Will go to European countries, will go to the United States and Canada. The impacts of climate change will not remain in Africa or in Southeastern Asia or in South America. So investing in these countries is for the good of all of us. We are not just supporting countries to solve everyday problems. We are investing through these countries to a better future. And we need these investments. If you take into consideration, for example, Africa, we expect Africa to reach its highest energy demand in about 2050 or 2060. So they still have 30 or even 35 years to reach the peak of their energy demands. The way they are going to progress in producing this energy that they will need in the coming 30 years is something that will define the future of the planet. If they follow the same wrong pathway that we followed in the developed countries, then that will be a disaster. If we invest in them and help them achieve the goals through more sustainable ways, that will be for the benefit of everyone. This is something that we all need to understand, and especially in developed countries. Thank you.
Oh, once again, quite a lot of information, which is great. And I love all the different insights that we are receiving from each one of the panelists, especially what you said about the importance of this collaboration to help advance, especially the SDG achievement between countries. Now, moving on to Soma, someone working closely with youth communities, how do you believe we can bridge the gap between these international commitments and events and the local implementation?
Okay. So to answer this question, I think I do agree with Shalom. Like previously, Shalom emphasizes about like to translate the COP29 commitments into tangible actions to local and also the communities levels. We need to create a dual approach that combines the top-down leadership with the bottom-up community engagements. Because at the national level, the government must also develop a really clear, actionable policies and also frameworks and strategies for them to develop and to align to global climate goals, and also they're tailored for the local context that are happening, towards the situations that are happening, and also the infrastructure that we have, and all of the resources that maybe we provided from each part of the country, or maybe from each specific location. So this also including the allocation for the financial resources, and then setting a specific targets, and maybe establishing accountability mechanisms for us to ensure the effective implementations across the region. And other than that, also for the local communities, must then be empowered to take the lead on driving the climate actions. I really like on how previously we were talking about how to participate, act, passion, and to find solutions, and also be out there to stand up for yourself, to stand up for others, and to empower others to propose solutions as well. And I think this is really important when it comes to climate actions, because by having our voice being heard, we can also empower others for them to provide solutions. And other than that, we can make more tangible actions, such as like providing training and resources. And we also maybe keep in touch with the government so that they can enable communities to implement projects such as like for energy transition, for in this case, or such as like renewable energy installations, sustainable agriculture practices, or maybe any climate adaptation strategies. And I think one of the advantages for us becoming youth is that we have this critical thinking ability, and also being innovative, and we are very tech savvy. In this case, we're very we have like this high digital fluency, so that it could also play a critical role both in advocating for these changes and also directing contributed towards the implementation. And I think it's very essential for us to involve young people in the policy development, policy making, and maybe policy supports for shaping the local climate actions. And other than that, we also already talked about the intergenerational collaborations. It's also one of the key, I think, because we have to support the younger generations to bring fresh ideas and to have the sense of urgency. Because as Indonesia, we have this thing they call Indonesia 45, where the number of populations in 2045 is 70% on their productive age. And I think this is very important for us to be more inclusive, for the participatory mechanisms to be put in place, so that we ensures that every voices is marginalized, and also vulnerable communities are heard and their needs are addressed, and we create a very impactful and also effective solutions for them. And other than that, I would like to emphasize more from the previous discussions is about to leveraging the technology so that we can further facilitate the local climate actions, from digitalizations, maybe data integrations, tools that help monitor for the environmental changes, that is more accountable, fast, and also reliable. And for platform to integrate for educational continuity, such as like knowledge sharings, or maybe capacity building, and for this multi stakeholder engagement approach for combining the government, the business, the academia, the civil society, the local, maybe the local places that need to be supported, and the COP29's commitments, so that it could be translated into concrete ideas, not only for the top-down approach, but also deeply rooted on the local realities, so that maybe it will be more impactful towards the people and also towards the environment to affect the climate change in the future.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Salma, for complimenting this great question. And once again, touching base on the importance of youth at policy development, the part of empowering local communities, especially indigenous communities, indigenous people. We're going to move on now to the Q&A. So we already have some questions, but if there is anything you would like to ask our panelists, we invite all attendees to put your questions in the chat. The first question will go first to Alejandra. This comes from Pablo. As youth leader actively shaping the climate agenda, what are your dreams and hopes for the future? And how do you envision the world you're striving to build?
Thank you so much for the question. I actually made like an exercise of how I would have liked the resolutions of COP to be. And if I'm allowed, I would like to share it because I'm not going to go very deep because we know that the resolution was very long, but I would like to like be commenting on some things. For example, we know that in the resolution we had like 1.3 trillions. And like if you consider the actual necessities not only of developing countries but also like in all the climate actions that must be implemented, the actual fund can go up to 3 trillions yearly, and it shouldn't be until 2035 but until 2030. Also, I would like to mention that some of the like disappointments I had was in the distribution of the NCQG, because once again they put a lot of emphasis in mitigation action, but they are forgetting something that for developing countries and regions it's very important, like adaptation, loss and damage, and cross-cutting. Actually, the current way of distribution, it's that around 70% goes to mitigation. And if you consider once again 70% of the total fund, so if you consider the actual necessities, it should go down to around like 40%. And I'm not stating that mitigation is not important and that's why I want to reduce it, but I would like also to prioritize more adaptation and loss and damage. And this is because mitigation measures in developing countries can cause a lot of inequalities, because you are I'm not going to say you are stopping their development, but you are putting pressure to them in the way they want to develop. And this is something that developed countries already had the opportunity, but not the developing countries. So that's why in developing countries, of course, we do have, as the famous phrase, the common but differentiated responsibilities. We also do have the responsibility to take action in mitigation. But of course, we also need to consider the context of developing countries. And to make it short, I, of course, dream in my specific case to a very live and diverse Amazon, because that's what I am focusing the most. Amazon, for me, it's my purpose of life, I would say. And of course, consider the inequalities and mainly indigenous people. I also dream that they do not face what they didn't cause. They didn't cause climate change, but they are one of the vulnerable groups that are facing the most. And of course, I dream of a generation that, once again, same as indigenous communities, do not face the consequences of something that they don't have caused. Thank you so much for the question.
Thank you so much, Alejandra. And Nicolas, before you have to leave, any short message or call to action you would like to share? One for the younger generation and another one for the adults that are as well on this call.
Yes, thank you. First of all, again, I would like to thank you for this invitation and congratulations on the initiative. It's really such a joy to be a part of this group of people, of young people, and to discuss such important issues. I mean, older generations have a very wrong idea of what younger people are engaged with. You are engaged with the future of the planet. We didn't do that when we were your age. So you are doing much more than we did. We did a lot of damage to the planet. Please avoid that. don't do the same mistakes we did. We have options. That's something very important to see. We have options now. We didn't have options in a few years back. We have options on renewable energy sources. We have options on collaborations. We have options of meeting and communicating with each other. I mean, traveling now, it's much easier than it was 20, 30 years ago. So we are in better contact. We are discussing with one another. We couldn't have this discussion before COVID, not long ago. Even before COVID, we couldn't have this online discussion. So take advantage of everything new that is available: artificial intelligence, new technologies, new ideas, new perspectives. There are a lot of things there, and we need to put them in action, put them down and put them in action. Adjust them to local needs, but also adjust them to the global needs. We need to combine local with global. We forget that a lot of times, but there is a lot of things to be done, and I'm very proud to be a part of this group of people, of young people who are so passionate in working for a better future. So thank you again very much, and I'm really sorry I need to leave, but I have a plane to catch.
No worries. Thank you so much, Nicolas, for your time and your participation. It has definitely been a joy. Now I would like to
Thank
turn
you.
back
Bye.
to you. Thank you so much, Nicolas. Have a good flight.
Thank
Now
you.
I would
Bye.
like to turn to Shalom. Shalom, what strategies do you think youth advocates can adopt to ensure that priorities such as climate justice, funding, intergenerational equity, education, or others are not only mentioned in text, but translated into action? How to claim the space?
Thank you so much. I loved the question when I saw it. And I think I'll just have to echo some of the things that our amazing panelists have mentioned. So the first would definitely, I will have to definitely go back to advocacy. So sometimes I know it feels tiring because for young people always going out there saying that this is real. And I think it's more on coupling advocacy with technical skills and technical recommendations. So I would say how to claim the space, like I mentioned, is basically going out there with your scientific backup, with your evidence. And just like Nicholas had mentioned about digitalization, AI is a powerful tool right now that can translate, that can readily give solutions to some of the things that we would normally think just within our heads. You can just ask AI about like maybe ChatGPT about these things, and you can get responses, right? And these solutions on digitalization cannot only you can only think about them only with the text. You can also use them, as information systems for future events. Take, for instance, using AI for early warning signals. So yes, the text on these things are available. You have to just provide the measures that this text can combine to be able to translate that to action. So I would always advocate for, first, advocacy. Young people have to keep advocating. You have to keep going out there to say these things to them, no matter how much they are, sometimes the negotiator seems like, okay, they are listening, but they are not listening. Sometimes it feels that way. So you just have to keep putting the message out there and reminding them consistently. I think the second thing is also really key on technological deployment and really working translating your own hope and dreams into actions. So take, for instance, where you have like Alejandro mentioned about a lot of text on mitigation, right? And I also have that concern because I feel that the emissions that we need to fight is the one already in the atmosphere, not the future emissions. And if you look at the way the negotiations are going, it's usually like energy storage. You're thinking about combating emissions that are not yet in the atmosphere. We're thinking about tripling renewables. what about the ones already in the atmosphere? What we are facing right now is as a result of the carbon emissions and the greenhouse gas emissions that are already in the atmosphere. So we have to think about really ramping things like maybe direct air capture or methane reduction, or those technologies that will really work on the current crisis and not just the future ones, while we are thinking about the future like the future emissions and things like that. So what I would just also say, in addition to that, is really localizing your actions and developing solutions that match what the text is saying. So for instance, what we do in my organization, so we are really promoting the energy assets, trying to ramp up the deployment of renewables to local communities, and as well as also trying to foster circular economy, so repurposing electronic waste, right? And so while the text is there, you also have to ramp up your own action. And I think someone mentioned something about sustainable agriculture and, planting trees. We know that from the COP29 outcome, we had the operationalization of the Article 6 and, things on carbon market, and we'll start like the development, the discussions around that will continue. So, as young people, we can really ramp up like tree afforestation, like tree planting. So I think it's more on practicing some of the text that has been discussed at COP, practicing them locally and trying to also translate those local actions into global impact. I think that's like how I'm going to respond to that, and I hope that answers the question. Thank you.
I think that answers that very, very nicely. Thank you so much, for that. Now, reflecting a little bit on what also you mentioned, Alejandra, previously about, the negotiations and the importance of having youth involved. In your opinion, and this is a question coming from Barbara, in which negotiations do you think youth are more included and are mostly listened or effectively engaged, and in which you believe there's still a lot of room for improvement, and why?
Well, thank you so much for the question. I had the opportunity to assist into two like rooms of negotiation, and the first one was the gender room. Maybe because it's something that our generation came up with and it's more conscious about this topic, I have seen a lot of young participation. However, in contrast to the second room of negotiation in terms of climate finance, I have seen that I wouldn't say that the participation is slow, but I would say that it's something that it's left for people that actually have like the positions, the power to put things into action. So of course, like I am very committed to the topic. I kind of like start to think how can I have more space, and how can young people have more space in this area, because through climate finance is the way that we are going to put in action our requests as young people, as nations, as societies. So I would say that it will be in climate finance, and maybe because it's something very sensitive about where the resources are going to come from, how is it going to be distributed, what are going to be the criteria. So maybe that's why it's a very I would just leave it as a sensitive topic, and this is maybe why young people do not have the participation they should have.
Thank you so much, Alejandra. And yes, I think, reflecting on that, I have had the same feeling. The more social the negotiation track is, let's say the age or gender, we tend to see more youth engagement, or engagement at the negotiation level. But if we go into the more technical or financial topics, the trend tend to be less. So definitely there's a huge gap to address there. Now, final question to Shalom, and this coming from Smita. Are there any specific goals for linking to the different COPs, making the relation to the work we do at SDSN and SDSN Youth related to SDGs? besides, you know, climate action, how do you see the interlinkage with the other SDGs?
Oh, thank you so much for the question. And I think we have a lot of linkages. So with the SDSN youth, I did start my engagement with SDSN youth through the CAP program, that's the Climate Actors Accelerator program. And it was really about advocacy and climate education. And so that I would say is something that it was like part of the center of the conversation at COP. So I was opportune to be a part of the panelists on the Arena Pavilion, where we discussed about how to encourage more young people to, translate some of the things that we hear, the terms like just transition, what does that mean? So creating curriculums and being able to teach that to people at the local level. So these are the kind of conversations that I've seen go on at COP, and I think that also aligns with what SDSN Youth is doing. And I think also one other thing I would like to mention is really about the linkage in terms of localizing solutions, right? Like from instance, the SDSN Local Pathways Fellowship trying to translate local solutions to global impact. And a lot of conversations that we had both in the pavilion where I engaged, like the Climate Mobility Pavilion, and talks on climate financing will always come to the point where you would hear people say that it's not a fit for all tech, like the way we have to deploy climate finance cannot be the same for every situation. So if you're looking at maybe the vulnerable communities or even like African continent or like Asian continent, you have to think about it in their own perspective, in the context of the purpose of which you want to use the finance. So that idea of integrating indigenous people, local people, also reflecting not just COP processes, but what SDSN Youth is doing and what, generally the youth conversations and the output. And I want to also end with something like, I know the question was directed to Alexandra, but I just wanted to touch a bit about the question on what youth I find youth engaging on like at COP. I think it's also about what they feel really affects them. So I was a part of the Global Center for Climate Mobility Youth Delegation. And there we really heard like lived experiences of young people losing their homes due to climate change and the climate crisis. So the care on where the finance is going it's huge for young people. But then the text, when you go to those negotiations, you start hearing, okay, this is concessional finance, this is blended finance. And sometimes trying to be able to follow through all of those terms in the documents, it's really something that I think that is the gap between youth engaging more in this conversation. Yes, they care about it, but how can they engage when maybe the texts are really difficult or too technical to understand? And I think it's something that we also maybe can look at as young people, solution providers, to be able to translate. And I think a lot of organizations are doing this. I recall the Care About Climate. They did a whole lot of documentation on what NDCs were about, and a couple of other organizations, including Young Gold, they tried to translate some of the negotiations, provide documents that young people can review before going to COP. And I feel like if we can harness more of this opportunities or resources, we would be able to engage more and like really have more meaningful youth engagement at these climate conferences. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shalom, and the importance of addressing this not only language gap, but understanding and knowledge gap of the process, which, it's very hard at COP, considering how much technical it tends to be. So this is the end of our Q&A, but before wrapping up, we will love to take a picture with the ones we have left. So please, I know it might be quite early afternoon for some, and it's Friday, but we would love to take a picture with all the people who attended this event and make this possible. So if you could please turn on your cameras, it will be highly appreciated. Just very quickly, we're gonna be fast. Let's see, we're gonna give a couple of seconds for everyone, hopefully turning on your cameras. Come on, don't be shy, it's only gonna be one picture. Okay, Raquel, are we good to go? Okay, so smile everyone. 1, 2, 3. Amazing. Okay, so we just want to say thank you so much to all our panelists. Some of them have to leave earlier, but we really welcome and appreciate your time. It has been a very interesting conversation about the outcomes from COP and how they translate into meaningful action at all levels, especially for youth. And we really thank all the valuable insights you share with us today. This conversation has been incredibly enlightening, and it's clear that the work ahead of us is vast, but full of potential. And as we reflect on the outcomes of COP29, it is inspiring to see how youth can work alongside experienced leaders to drive meaningful climate action. And I will also like to thank everyone in the audience for participating in this intergenerational dialogues. This is the second edition, the second one we do. So your engagement and support are crucial to ensuring that the commitments, made in Baku do not stay on paper, but translate into real world action. And also it's very crucial that we engage in this type of conversations. So we also hear another perspective. We're able to collaborate. We're able to hear about what other generations have to say about the same problem. So we must continue to collaborate, innovate, and hold each other accountable as we move forward. And youth leadership is not just the future, it's the present, as some of the panelists have already highlighted during today's conversation. And together we can ensure that the promises made at COP29 come to life, and especially now with the road to Brazil at COP30. So thank you once again to our panelists and to all of you for your time and engagement. And we look forward to continue this important work together and to see you at our next intergenerational dialogue.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.